Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Naughty Neighbours. First up, we have Tweaker Neighbour from Hell by Adept Researcher 668. So I live in a mountain, rural small town where just about everyone knows everyone. 3 houses down is a large family that is known for drama and tweakers. The family has slowly calmed down the shenanigans, or so we thought. Last Wednesday, I was sitting outside in the garage with the father of my children. Our 2 friends and my 4-year-old was playing directly out the roll-up door. Our driveway is almost a half mile, but in an incline starting about halfway. So, when my son was saying that someone was walking up to us, the person was already to the house. To my surprise, it was a woman, one of the neighbors. I walked up to her with some conviction and asked what she was doing. What made her think it was okay to walk in under my date? To which she replied, "I'm allowed to be here, get away from me," and then some cursing, and continues walking. I yelled over to my boyfriend and said sarcastically, "She's saying she's allowed to be here, so it must have been okay with you." And he chuckles and says, "Really? Well then." And then she noticed the friends in the garage. She decided she was going to talk to one of them extremely aggressively, and had been so delusional as to thinking they were someone else, and was telling them how she has to stab them again to get them to effing realize she's not stupid. So I rushed to get my son in the house, very smart, and come back and everyone is yelling and telling her to go. After a minute of this, she finally decides to start walking again, but she walks through my property into the backyard. My backyard is a national forest, and starts walking in all weird directions, dropping belongings everywhere. Finally, I had enough and said, "I'm setting my dog loose since you won't get out of here." And then I did. My dog went running after her and barking. He's a scary-looking mofo, but he's a little special. He's really only looks. He ran right past her and kept going. Good boy. I wanted to make sure this woman got off my property, and I also wanted to make sure none of her crap was left on my property to give her any twisted delusional reasons to come back. So I'm picking up the random stuff she's throwing and literally doing this while she's yelling crazy nonsense, and we're hiking up a mountainside, stepping over rocks and fallen trees through a forest. We finally, after like 40 minutes, come back to the hillside of the neighbor's property. She's saying more crazy stuff about how the whole town wants to gangbang her, and that her son is the reason she's like this, and there's a sex cult in town, and that all the men want her to join. To which I simply laugh and reply, "You're delusional, woman," and continue following her. She walks up to the front of these people's home, who have a ring, and starts pounding on the door and telling them that I'm trying to kill her. Then she starts yelling at their dogs, who are now barking at her through one of the windows. She starts walking away. I went up to the ring saying she's a crazy person. I'm trying to make sure she makes it home. She randomly showed up on my property, and I'm sorry for the disruption. We walk past a few more homes, and then she does it again. She walks up to another home and starts pounding on the door. I notice a camera, let her do her thing, and as she walks away, I tell the camera the same thing and start walking when she turns and punches me dead in the face. I immediately grab her with one hand, punch her in the nose with the other, and get my leg behind hers and take her down. She's a bigger girl than me, so I knew I needed to get the upper hand fast as I could. I get her down, and I'm knocking her over and over, and she's saying weird stuff about how she likes it, and that's all you've got, and blah blah blah. And finally, I got her to shut up for a few seconds, as I had my knee in the back of her neck holding her face in the dirt, to figure out how I'm going to get away from this crazy woman. I realize we aren't too far from my house, so if I'm loud enough I can probably yell and my boyfriend will hear me. So that's what I do, and it was the longest 5 minutes ever. In the middle of yelling out and holding this crazed woman down, someone drives by and is staring. So I yelled out, "Can you please help me?" The person stops, flips around, and slowly drives off as I hear him talking to 911. Then I feel this chick farting on me. Perhaps even a worse indignity than the punching? I have a sickness of farting, especially when directed at me or on me. so I start immediately, out of rage, punching her and tell her to stop crapping herself on me and how nasty she is for doing so. And finally, a few seconds later, my boyfriend shows up, and I tell him how she hit me in the face, and that I'm not wanting to let her go so she can just get up and hit me or someone else again. But the cops are on their way, and I just heard some guy call them. My boyfriend then goes over to her home, calls out to her tweaker boyfriend, and tells him to go handle her, or there's going to be hell to pay. So he comes over, holds her down, tells her how he's going to kick her in the head if she tried anything, and finally I was relieved of holding her down and being farted on. I walked home and washed my face, well, you would after that, because she did make me bleed a bit from my nose and gave me a tiny shadow on my eye. But I saw her the next afternoon and she was way worse. Cops came, but we were both gone, so nothing came of it. But I think she learned not to walk up in private property, or to fart directly on another woman. Even indirectly would be unacceptable. Put your butt out the window. And second story today is, Am I Crazy or Do I Have Crazy Neighbors? By OK Mushroom 7271. I, 30 female, live alone in the UK. Have lived in a flat or apartment block for 9 years, 10 in October, and have had no neighbor issues for the majority of my stay here. When the people living below me did a home swap with another group of people 3 years ago, however, that all changed. An elderly mother, 60s, 70s, and her son who still lived with her in his 40s, with another slightly younger son, 30s and 40s, who is extremely abusive but has his own missus and kids living elsewhere, thank God, but does occasionally come over to visit them. This is the same guy who followed me to the bus stop back in June to yell and shout abuse at me for messing with their mate, because I had reported them for keeping me up at night. My neighbors within the flat block, aside from 2 who keep to themselves, have way too much free time and are frankly psychotic. The new neighbors who live directly below me stay up all night every night smoking weed and getting drunk, sometimes wandering outside laughing and shouting. I've been working ever since I got this flat, and you can imagine how trying to sleep with these deadbeats is a challenge in itself, even with a fan going overnight and high-grade earplugs. We'll call these guys the weed neighbors. One said neighbor is a needs-to-know everything about everyone all the time type. I'll call them nosy neighbor for this. We don't have HOAs here in the UK, but I imagine she would be their top caller reporter if we did, because if anyone does anything out of line that she dislikes, she's on the phone. Leaving muddy tracks through the hallway to the flat, she will report it. Your Just Eat food delivery guy knocked on your door a little too loudly, reported. Tap dripping in the flat above her, reported. Just a nightmare neighbor in general, despite how sweet she tries to be when she meets anyone face to face. Now, this is where it becomes a problem for me. Since Weed Neighbours moved in, as you can imagine, she has been reporting them to the Housing Association multiple times for this, and that they have apparently had multiple incidents of throwing verbal insults at each other, and Weed Neighbours messing with her doormat and flipping her off via the Ring camera, etc. But the last 2 or 3 months, they seem to suddenly be all okay again. She has also stopped knocking on my door, which she usually would be doing at least once a week, to ask for an update on Weed Neighbours as to whether they've continued with their noise in the night or otherwise been doing anything that has disturbed my peace. Every other time I enter my home now, she comes out of her place a few minutes later and is knocking on their door, and they start chatting and giggling. I think she discovered the wonders of weed. If I open my door during this, Nosy will scatter back to her own door. I've discussed this with my friends and family multiple times, but now I'm starting to feel real naive and stupid. It took me way too long to consider this is all likely some big game, mainly because of one huge factor. They know every detail about everyone who goes in and out of the Weed Neighbours' place. I just assumed they were eavesdropping any chance they could get and relaying it to me, but it always seems strange how they know where each of their family members that visits lives, when any of them have moved out, or where they're originally from, who's broken up with who, and who's divorced to and from whom. Like, how do you find all this out without being civil enough to chat with them about it? Like a fool for those 3 years, I've been telling her everything I'm dealing with in regards to Weed Neighbours, and admittedly, that includes bad-mouthing them in front of her, because I'm sick and tired of their ASBO behaviour. The council and the housing association that own these flats won't do anything about it. Is moving out really my only option here? I love my little place, and the location it's in, but there's some really bad apples about. I could really use some help. Well, unfortunately, the situation we're in right now, moving out might be the only option. If you're able to carefully find another location that you know is going to be quiet, that's more viable. A house, you can have noisy neighbours with a house. I've dealt with that here, just once where it was a real problem, then just occasional, bouts of noise for a neighbour, but not constant, so nothing you'd really complain about. But it does seem like it's much more frequent when you live in a flat, so I definitely consider moving out. And don't talk to your neighbours. You sound like you're in the UK, so your council should have means of evicting troublesome neighbours. You might just have a lazy housing association, a lazy council. And the third story today is neighbours' dogs constantly unleashed and pooping in my yard, and neighbours don't clean it, by Shark Vader 1. I've been dealing with very rude and entitled neighbours who constantly let their dogs out their front door unleashed, unsupervised, and just let them roam around and poop in the neighbours' yards. I've gone to their doors several times to politely ask them to pick up after their dogs and prevent them from doing so in my property unsupervised. The bigger dog actually has gone in my garage and also runs up to my toddler's face. Each time I politely ask them, they are dismissive and rude. This most recent time I asked, the husband started yelling in a rude tone that, "I don't want to deal with this," and repeating over and over that, "It's just poop." Well, back it up and deliver it to them then. This made me realize that I could never come to an understanding with these people, so we developed a plan and went no contact with them. I set up a camera and filmed their dogs over a month going on my property, pooping, not cleaning up their waste, going in my garage, running up to my toddler, etc., all while unsupervised and unleashed. I then reported them to the HOA with all the evidence. The HOA gave them a warning, and this made them extremely angry. We could hear them screaming in their house after they got the warning, probably yelling insults at us. The husband then went on the neighborhood Facebook page and posted a threatening and racist rant about us. He called us ugly, disgusting, for reporting him, and said we should move back to where we came from. I forwarded this to the HOA, but they said they could do nothing about it. The Facebook page is not an official page of the HOA. The admin of that neighborhood page did delete his post, and then posted the rules to everyone in direct response to this posting. A few days later, I caught their dog on camera again. I forwarded this new video to the HOA, and the president personally went to their door. He spoke to the husband and talked to him about the Facebook post, and warned him that if their dogs violate the HOA rules one more time, then animal control will get involved. My HOA president told me that he was drunk when he posted that on Facebook. He then posted a half-hearted apology on the Facebook neighborhood group, saying he was out of character. Apparently not. It wasn't even directed at us. I think he was just trying to save face because he embarrassed himself in front of the entire neighborhood. Not even 30 minutes later, his wife texts my wife the longest, most hostile and manipulative text I've seen in my life. In that text, she had several demands. She demanded we forward her all videos we sent to the HOA. She demanded we stop involving the HOA. She wants us to apologize for telling the HOA that her husband posted a racist post on Facebook. Yeah, the racism's not the problem, it's you telling people about it, obviously. She also called us the hostile ones, and the irony, right? And played the victim, saying we were evil for reporting her to the HOA and taking away her dogs. The following night, their husband paced back and forth in front of our house, testing our camera. He said to someone off camera, probably his manipulative wife, "Yeah, it's on now," referring to our camera. Because of this, I bought 2 more cameras and will be mounting one in the back of my house, and one on the side of my house watching my AC unit, in case they try to damage anything. They also have a bad history with many other people in the neighborhood, but I won't get into that, because this post is already getting too long. And story number 4 is Advice on How to Deal with This Going Forward by Medical Ad 2241. So me and my husband rent our house from his mother. We had a neighbour who does not live directly next to us hire someone with a skid skeeter come and dig up the alleyway next to our property because we have some rocks and dirt that is next to our house. Those are there to support our backyard wall, and he did this negligently without our permission. He shoveled all the dirt and rocks in our alley up against our wall. We have city trash cans, and it was my understanding at first that due to alley grading and such, that the city maintains the alleyway up to a certain point. Of course, any obstructions on the homeowner's property would have to be maintained by the homeowner. But when I spoke to the city, she told us that was incorrect, that they can have the city's services there, but the alleyway wasn't maintained by them. That's fine, I digress. But what our neighbor did looks awful. He didn't even level out the rocks. They're all shoved up against some giant mound against our wall. We're going to take it all back down, as whenever it rains again, it's all going to slide down anyway. Those rocks have been there for 25 years with no complaint, so we really have no idea what this guy's issue is. The city has done work in our neighborhood, they drive up and down that alleyway all the time, and they have never said anything about the rocks either. My only concern is this is going to become a civil matter, and when we called the police the first time, they sincerely didn't seem like they cared about it, of course. I am now worried we are going to have to deal with this from this neighbor. Like the rocks and dirt simply cannot stay up, it looks atrocious. It's going to have to come down, but what is going to stop him from digging it all back up? I have no idea. Do you guys have any advice? At the very least, we made a police report, so that we have that on file against him. But I just want him to leave us alone and not be digging up our alleyway whenever he feels like it. He's not our next-door neighbor, he does not share that portion of the alleyway with us. We really don't know what set him off to do this, so any advice on how we can handle this? The person operating the skid skeeter, by the way, seems to be his friend or something, so I do think he will just have him come back out and do it again, if he so pleases, since he already did this once before. We also plan on speaking with our neighbor, who shares the alleyway with us, to ask if and what we end up doing is okay with him. He also doesn't know why this bonehead didn't just level it out either. Any advice is greatly appreciated. Yeah, that's kind of a weird one. Well, don't engage with him. Like you say, he's not your actual neighbor. Check with the actual neighbor to see if he asked them to do this. If not, then it's bloody weird is what it is. He's on your property. There'll be the alleyway either it's shared between the two houses, or one of you owns it, or you own part of it, or something like that. So he's on property that he's no business touching, is what it sounds like. At least from what you were saying, the local council says it's not their responsibility to maintain it, so ownership doesn't seem to fall to them. You might have to end up going to court with this, maybe small claims or something like that, or get some sort of injunction just to keep this joker away from your property. His downstairs neighbour constantly harassing us over normal noise. What can I do? This is in the UK. By Imaginary Rune 600. Hi everyone, my partner and I bought a flat in a council building. We're on the top floor in London. Ever since moving in, our downstairs neighbour has been making life pretty miserable, with constant complaints about totally normal living noises and ridiculous accusations. She lives alone, is in her late 30s, I believe, and I think she does not work, probably due to mental health issues. Within 2 days of moving in, she was banging violently on our door just after 11 p.m. because we'd moved a bit of furniture around. We didn't answer because it legit sounded like someone was trying to break the door. She later shoved a long letter through saying there should be no signs of living after 11 p.m. We apologized several times, and since then have been really careful. Stop doing that right now. Stop being careful, just live your life. Going to bed at around 10, 11 p.m. and keeping things really quiet. Oh, this hoe would hate living next to me. The whole thing was terrifying, though. She's quite aggressive and confrontational. Since then, it's just been one thing after another, even though we usually spend weeks away. Then only a few days at the flat, then leave again. She accused me of walking around in high heels. I don't start, and nobody was even home then. Left notes telling us to lift our feet in the middle of the day, and complained about dragging items across the floor, when I literally moved the sofa about 2 inches at 10 a.m. to reach a plug. Meanwhile, in the daytime, she blasts music and sings loudly. Of course she does. She said she'll sing however and whenever she wants because that's what makes her happy and that's what life's about. Except after 11 p.m. when you should not be alive. I honestly don't care about her music, but it's ridiculous that I feel like I can't even walk around my own flat while she does whatever she wants. We recently put up a video doorbell for security and deliveries, and she taped over it claiming we're not allowed to record her. It only records when someone actually rings it. She's defacing your property. Most recently, she knocked and rang our bell more than 20 times, and see, it's great because you can document her, and then waited outside our flat for almost an hour. We both work all day, and neither of us have time to deal with her ridiculous accusations. We are working on getting the floors replaced and make the flat more soundproof for her. No, don't even bother. Nothing you do. I can assure you, not one thing you do to those floors is going to make her shut up. The fact that you exist is the problem. She'll keep complaining for as long as you live there. Your only option now is to sell the flat, move someplace else, because she's not going to do anything illegal enough. I'm assuming she owns the flat too. She's not going to do anything that's going to get her kicked out. So your only option here is to find another place. Maybe a house, but if you prefer a flat, make sure you've got tolerant neighbours, or at least sane neighbours, because you really didn't get a sane one here. I lost my place. Where am I? Floors replaced, and make the flat more soundproof for her, but it'll take a while and the building site noise will probably send her over the edge. Actually, I hadn't thought about that. We're away a lot of the time anyway, but when we're home, we're super quiet, to the point I'm sneaking around my own flat. She's giving you anxiety, it's affecting your mental health. It really feels like harassment now, it's because it is, and I don't feel comfortable in my own home anymore, especially when I'm all by myself for a few days. Has anyone had to deal with a neighbour like this? If you're in the UK, would you go to Citizens Advice or the Council's Antisocial Behaviour Team? Is this a thing? First? Part of me worries it'll take forever to get any help, or make things worse, but I honestly feel terrified. Our front doors are right next to each other, so I'm always worried she might stalk me or wait for me. Would really appreciate any advice on hearing how others handled similar situations. Right, well you got the doorbell with the camera. Just record and document any time she's at your door harassing you. Keep any letters or anything she's sending you. You haven't mentioned she's calling you, so that's good, but if she does get a hold of your number, record those calls as well. And anytime she does do anything is a little bit illegal, if she's making noise after a certain time, call the police, report her to your local council or any governing body that would deal with that sort of thing. But documenting what's happening is very important, and as I mentioned earlier, you might want to consider moving, because she seems to be skirting just on this side of the line, and I don't think she's going to do anything that's going to get her kicked out. Finding another place might be your best option here. I know it's easy to say, moving sucks, especially in today's economy, but if you want any peace, probably your best option. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Big thanks to everyone who allowed me to use their stories. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by signing up for my Patreon page, which is linked down in the description there. $1 or more a month. I mean, it's just pay what you feel, really. So $1, $10,000, whatever. Gets you early access to all the videos on Monday at once. There's also a link to my merchandise store on Teespring, as well as my Discord server and various other social media links. Okay, that's everything for now, so before we go, let's have Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is: 24-hour shops, are they a thing where you live? In the UK, it was never really a thing at one point, at least not in my local area. Then we got, many years ago now, Tesco opened up in my town. Right, we had them, it's just we didn't have one particularly in Airdrie. So they opened one up, and it was 24 hours. It was awesome. until it wasn't, because there came a certain point, I think there was probably a reason for this. Maybe they weren't doing enough business, maybe there was other economical reasons for it, where they just stopped doing 24-hour openings before I even had a chance to go that late at night. Now they just open a little bit later than most other stores, and there's really nowhere open that late, which is annoying for me personally, because occasionally I do get the urge at 2 or 3 in the morning, like, kind of want to go out, want to get a little bit of exercise, cycle while it's nice and quiet, and buy some groceries, but I can't, because nowhere's open at that time, even though there are plenty of people like myself who are up at night, and they enjoy the nightlife, even like to boogie sometimes. Let me know what you think, a comment below. Are they a thing where you are? Gas stations don't count. Before we go, let's take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from Craftsman Cottage Chick. Heard a friend's dad bragging about his bonus one year. How did he get his bonus? He gave all of his employees bad performance reviews, so most of them didn't get a raise. His bonus was made up of all the money he's saved. That man needs to be beaten. And thank you very much for your answer. With that, I'm going to head off for now. It's been a busy week this week. I'm doing all my recording later in the week because you heard me mention I got an offer for an audiobook last week in last week's paranormal video, but it didn't pan out because it wasn't a paid gig. A few days later I got another one. This one was for a paid gig, and I've recorded the book. I'm going to edit it next week, so I was doing most of that this week, so I wanted to make sure I focused my attention on getting that done first before I then did the story, so I'm now doing that. Hopefully it's the first of many, fingers crossed, we'll see what happens, but I really enjoyed the experience so far. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for watching, and take very good care of yourselves. Bye bye.